Let's just go back to our guest in Washington, Mr. Tarpley. Now, the question of who the militants in Syria, Mr. Tarpley, are, whether they are coordinated within themselves or not. We've got the al-Nusra Front, which was mentioned there. We've got the Free Syrian Army, calling itself rather the Free Syrian Army. We've got the National Coalition. We've got another opposition inside, another opposition abroad. Are these various groups coordinated or getting basically their orders from one single entity or place?
I think the groups that you mentioned are owned by different proprietors in the Western world. It was widely known that the Syrian National Council, the one that's been pushed aside, was under the very direct control of the French Direction Générale des Services Extérieurs, the DGSE. So that was the Syrian National Council, and everything they did or said, every trip they made was ordered from Paris. We get the idea that the Nusra Front is heavily controlled by Saudi Arabia, with perhaps some input from Qatar. But then you've also got other groups that are franchises controlled by other forces. I'm sure the British have their favorites. The US seem to have appointed Khatib, this Anglo-Dutch shell, Royal Dutch shell, executive, to be the head of the coalition. So it is not a national opposition in any sense. I would say the first step towards a negotiated solution or political solution would be the exit of all foreign fighters. Get all foreign fighters out of the country. We've heard that 1,000 Pakistani Taliban have been killed by the Syrian army in fighting. We've had stories of people coming from Britain, from Chechnya, from Libya. We've heard about an airlift by NATO from Libya into Turkey and then into Syria. Yeah. This is obviously a destabilization conducted from abroad. The political solution depends on that being stopped.
I guess now in London, Mr. Mackey, the issue of things getting more militarized as we move forward, you said their time is running out for Syria. And now the question is, a possible exit of all foreign fighters, that does seem very far-fetched. Do you think that we are entering actually into the phase of a full-scale military intervention, maybe like the one we saw in Libya? Are these powers preparing themselves for a full-scale military intervention?
Of course not. Foreign intervention in a military sense, just as the Libya scenario, is absolutely impossible. Syria's military capabilities in air defence and missiles are much larger than any of the other regional states. The West they're very cautious when it comes to military intervention in Syria. And as I said before, a poll in The Independent suggested that the majority of British voters would reject any intervention inside of Syria. There is changes on the ground. The Syrian Arab Army has begun to regain territory in Homs and in Aleppo, major strategic bases which were held by the opposition fighters. This has signified a kind of relative change in the battle on the ground. But in terms of the political solution, the biggest kind of beneficiaries of what is happening now are America and Israel. And this is a true disaster for Syria and the Arab world. The only states who want the Syria crisis to continue are the Western states. And as Kofi Annan recently stated, that his biggest problem in dealing with the Syria crisis was the absolute intransigence of the Western governments and the Western regimes and the Arab reactionary regimes in the Syria crisis. They block any political solution. They block any political settlement which negotiates a peaceful ending to what is happening. Yeah. This is an absolute travesty in this day and age.
Right, well, our guest in...
This is an issue...
Yeah, I'll just stop you, Mr. Mackey, because we're short of time, and our guest in Beirut is now back with us. Let's get his views on this as well. Now, Mr. Bakri, what the Geneva Agreement is actually based on, according to Lakhdar Brahimi, is that we're going to see a stop to all violence, then we're going to see a unity government or a transitional body formed before elections are held. This has looked like a very reasonable solution right now for the crisis, but what's stopping it? A lot of people are saying it's because of the Western support for the militants, the fact that they're not willing to stop with these military operations. Do you agree?
To a certain extent, I may agree, but there is one point we need to remember. The Muslim Ummah is one nation, and you're speaking about now the support of Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Turkey. But what you did forget that the support of the Qataris people, the Saudis people, the Turkish people, the Lebanese, those who are Muslims, they see themselves, they are one nation. They support their own Muslim brothers, whether their own government agreed or don't agree. So whether America like it or don't like it, even the Syrian coalition, they have to accept Musra from, because it is people are fighting against the atrocity of Assad. People from all over Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, even from Britain, from America, Muslims are coming from all over the world to support their own Muslim brothers in Syria. So people no longer accepting any political settlement less than removing.
So, Mr. Bakri, you're saying, sorry for jumping in here.
In accountability.
Yeah, so,
Sorry?
Mr. Bakri, you're saying that those fighters in Syria, the militants in Syria, are not attacking civilians, that they're not carrying out terrorist operations, they're just supporting the people?
All act of terrorism has been committed by the Syrian regimes. Those people are fighting against the Syrian forces, against Assad gangsters.
All these fallacies of the regime, he made mistake. He claimed the elephant fly. You see, this is nobody going to believe him anymore. Assad must be removed from power. I believe Geneva agreement is not going to be helpful for the people of Syria unless Assad has been put in hold, in accountability, or run away from the countries. Any other solutions are waste of time. The fighters there are go there for the sake to remove the regime and establish some justice and some system where they can live without atrocity.
Right.
And people should remember, Muslim nations are in the area, are one nation, one ummah, and the majority of them are Sunni Muslims. They like it, they don't like it. They're going to be in power, whether they are going to be in shape of Muslim Brotherhood or in shape of Islamic coalitions, but they are welcoming the minorities from the Christian, from the Arab communities. Their life not at risk. The real risk is from Assad regime and his gangsters. So
Okay.
This is the situation of Syria coming to the end. I don't think Assad have anything to negotiate about, less than to run away from the countries or to handle the power and lead the post.
Right, and I guess now in Washington, Mr. Tarpley, what do you think is standing in the way of that political agreement based on the Geneva communique that was agreed upon, actually, by foreign powers, including Russia and the US?
I don't think the Obama administration has any intention of actually honoring such a pledge, and Hillary Clinton is up to her neck in all of this stuff, needless to say. The orders that have been given to the Syrian National Coalition, which has an even bigger death squad representation and al-Qaeda representation than the council, is that they are forbidden to make any political arrangement. In other words, their orders are to make sure that the political solution remains impossible, that the crisis remains open, and therefore the path to military intervention also open. Typically, the US and British ruling classes, when confronted with a situation where they want to intervene and public opinion says no, they have recourse to some kind of false flag action, some kind of Gulf of Tonkin style operation that would give them enough public hysteria to try to mount some kind of an air attack or something of this sort. The problem is, we've heard that the British people are against this. I would also say the degree of war weariness here in the United States is overwhelming, so it will not be easy to orchestrate yet another round of hysteria on the Afghan or Iraqi model. So this is going to be a difficult process, but I think that's where they might turn.
Thank you very much, historian and journalist Dr. Webster Griffin Tarpley there with us live from Washington. A big thank you to co-founder of Syrian Youth in Britain, Mr. Danny Mackey in London, and also thanks to political analyst Mr. Omar Bakri, who was with us via Skype from Beirut. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us on another edition of News Analysis from me, Homa Lesgi. Until our next programme, goodbye.